Hi.
Hi,
Can you share your name and where you're from?
I'm Sarah Jane Gonsalves. I'm from Rochester, New York.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
hmm
So tell me, is there room for me to cry? Is the devil all inside my mind? I don't wanna die like this, I wanna live my life.
Okay, Sarah. Thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And you start wherever you're comfortable. We can just walk through it together.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want to start by talking about your son? Is that like where it starts? Or how
Sh-
old he was? Talk about his
sure.
childhood and
Yeah. So, my son Logan Osiris Farnsworth, he was born to a teenage mother. I was 17 when I had him, and he was born in 1998, so prenatal care and um, support for teenage moms was very, very lackluster. And I
Mhm.
didn't have a supportive family. They supported him um, in the sense of like they loved him and they helped care for him when I had him. But if I didn't have him, there was no support for me.
For you. Yeah.
So I was often, when his father and I split up, I was often couch surfing when I didn't
Okay.
have him. And then when I had him, it was just always a struggle. And he he's just he's been my life since I was 17. He's all I know. All I know is parenthood
Mm.
and it wasn't easy for me. It wasn't easy for him, but he had everything he needed. He had so much love from so many people and you know, but I just feel like when he was 4 years old, he started to hear voices and see things. And of course, with separated families and he had a stepmother that was mentally ill herself, and she put a lot of stress and pressure on his father and I, and um, we did a lot of blaming for these hallucinations and night terrors he was having when he was 4. Like, you know was it did his father was into comic books and watched comic book movies started to come out, and we thought maybe he was watching scary movies or reading
Right.
scary comic books. And you know when he started to see voices or hear voices and see images in the walls when he was sleeping, and we would be at a grocery store and he would just cover his ears and start screaming, and he's like, they won't leave me alone, they won't leave me alone. And
Oh,
I was afraid, like, but I didn't know what to do.
yeah.
Like, my parents, I felt like everybody blamed me for everything, like I was, I got a job at a strip club because I could work nights and be there for him during the day. I struggled, and I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like I was 17, 18, and there was, I just did what I thought was best. And I was afraid if I said something to his pediatrician that it would come back on me somehow, or it would come back that he was insane and they would institutionalize him. And so it was like, I think we all just kind of blamed, you know, each other
Right.
when, and we're all young, and um, separation obviously is messy, and the kids always suffer
Yeah.
in a split up. And, and like, I was just so naive back then. And I let a lot of people have a lot of control over what I was doing, and because I just didn't know what I was doing myself. And um
Which, just so you know, I can totally feel your pain in every way when it comes to that kind of stuff. I was only 18 with my first,
mm,
with no one to help, no one. So, and you're so right where you feel helpless because you don't know,
yeah,
and there's no one guiding you in, like, as another adult or a family member to say, well, this is what we need to do. This is what we have to look into. You're
right.
on your own.
Literally
Yeah.
on my
Yeah.
own. And I when I found out I was pregnant, I was supposed to be hitchhiking to New Orleans with a friend of mine who broke out of a detention center, and the police were looking for her. And I was hiding her out in my boyfriend's garage at the time, my son's
Okay.
father. And he was pressuring me, like, you got to get her out of here. And I was like, okay, fine. And, and at the time he was a heroin addict. And so I'm like, I knew I didn't want to spend my life with him. I'm trying to get away from him. And the
Yeah.
only reason I stayed is because he had a house and it was a place to sleep. And
Right.
he was charming and cute, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it wasn't enough to keep me there.
Yeah.
And so my friend and I had plans to hitchhike to New Orleans. Like, we hitchhiked everywhere in our local town. And so it just wasn't a big deal to us.
Right.
And so she came over that morning, and, we had all of our stuff to pack, and I wasn't feeling well. And I
Mm-hmm.
told her, I was like, I think, I'm like, I have to get a pregnancy test. My period's late. She's like, aren't you on the pill? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, so maybe it's stress. And I'm like, let's just, because I wasn't always on top of taking my pill, and I'd
Yeah.
double up. And I'm 17,
Right. You're young.
I
Yeah.
was 16, when I went on the pill.
Right.
So it was just kind of like, like, oh, one pill will last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And so we walked to the supermarket, and my son's father was a baker at the supermarket that we walked to, and we stole a pregnancy test and came back, and I was pregnant. I took another one. We stole two just in case, and I was 2 lines
Definitely
and
pregnant.
pregnant, and I'm like,
Okay.
fuck, like, I never wanted kids. From a little girl, I never, ever, ever, ever wanted kids. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm going to get an abortion. She couldn't stay. I had to take care of this. I called Planned Parenthood. I made an appointment, and I went upstairs to my son's father's room, and I kind of sat on the edge of the bed, and, and he was high and sleeping. He just got out of work, and, and I'm like, I just sat, I told him, I'm like, I have to talk to you. And, I told him I had made up my mind that I was going to get an abortion. And, he cried, and he said that if I kept the baby, that he would get clean and we could build a house, like a log cabin on his grandparents' property. And, and I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, maybe, I don't want to be running away and hitchhiking
Yeah.
anywhere. I mean, I did, but I didn't. And, the idea of maybe starting a family of my own and saving my son's father from himself. Like, I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
him to die. I already was losing friends to heroin.
Right.
And so I didn't show up for my appointment. And him and I, we worked things out the best we could. He did stay sober. He did stay clean, and he was always my friend. Like, it was the woman that he married 9 months, 10 months after I left him, because, I was never in love with him. He was
Yeah.
more like family, because I was good friends with his brother, and I was very good friends with his sister. And his mom was the mom house that took in all the wayward kids.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
were fed, we had a safe place to hang out. And, you know, but I didn't know what to do. I begged my parents to move home. And they said, you can come and visit when you have Logan, but you can't move home. My mom said I was in the hospital having an emergency C-section, which I didn't know I had. I was scared out of my mind. I didn't want this baby to begin with. At this point, I wanted to give him up for adoption because things just weren't working with his
Right.
father and I. And I couldn't hold down a job. I had gotten fired from Kaufman's by a woman named Peggy Thorne. She pulled me into her office, and when she found out I was pregnant, and she said, "How do you think my company would look if they knew we were hiring teenage girls that were pregnant?" And I'm like, I don't think you can fire me. I think that's illegal. She's like, it's the holidays. We don't need any more holiday help. You can pack your things and you can leave. And I didn't know. I was like, what am I going to do now? You know, like I lost
Right.
my job, you know, and being a teenager and pregnant in the 90s was awful. Like,
Yeah.
I think the most support I had was WIC. I mean, thank God.
Right.
But, you know, and so I was like, I'm going to give this baby up for adoption. And there's no way we could keep him. I can't stay with his father. I can't take care of myself. My parents won't let me come home. I'm going to talk to a social worker. And so when I didn't even go into labor. Like, I don't even know what a contraction feels like. But I had to have an emergency C-section, and I was freaking out. I'm crying hysterically. My mother picks me up by my gown and slaps me across the face, and she says, "Get a hold of yourself, young lady. You made your bed, and you're going to lie in it. I am not raising my grandchild, and you're either going to raise him or give him up for adoption." Okay.
What was happening that you had to have an emergency C-section?
I have a bicornuate uterus, so I technically have two, and it's heart-shaped. So it's like this.
Yeah.
And he was in one horn, so it wouldn't allow him to turn all the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How many months were you at this point?
Oh, I was full
Full
term.
term? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I had him, he had to go to the NICU, which I think a lot of C-section babies do, you know,
Yeah.
because
Especially back then.
yeah, because when they go through a vaginal canal,
Mm-hmm.
it squeezes out that fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't get to see him at all when I had him. They didn't show him to me, nothing. They just took him away. And I just, you know, from my recollection, I remember laying in the hospital bed.
Probably in pain.
Oh, I was in so much pain, and I was so scared, and I just wanted to give this baby up for adoption before I even saw him. I was like, I can't do this to this child. How fair would it be bringing this human into the world when I can't even take care of myself? And I couldn't find someone to take care of me. And a social worker came in and we talked about it. And I remember holding him for the first time. And he was so, so beautiful. Blonde hair, blue-eyed, little baby boy, perfect little head. He was over 6 pounds. He was just a little peanut. And I fell so in love. I never felt a love like that before. And I loved him so much, and I wanted him to have the best life ever. I knew that in order for him to have the best life ever, he would have to go to a family that could take care of him. His father refused. His father refused to sign the papers. He has rights. The nurses, and he's just, no. And so I was like, well, okay, this is just my life now. My mom told me, you do what you need to do to make your son's father happy. And, like, and I did, and I tried, and I held on to as long as I could. And he had his own mental health issues. It's like broken kids dating
Yeah.
broken kids. It was like we were like our own Neverland.
Right.
We were all the lost kids that came from broken homes, and you have two broken kids having kids. It's,
Yeah.
so there are a lot of layers to everything. But I never not loved my son, and I did everything. I I would have never gotten to the sexually orientated business industry if I didn't have to find a way to make enough money to support us,
Yeah.
and that didn't go over well in court with a judge. I ended up getting involved with um, this guy who was a punk rocker, and he had a huge mohawk, and he was in a punk band with a studded leather jacket. We were both punk rockers, and he was the sweetest guy. Like, he was so good to Logan and all of my punk rock
Oh.
friends. Like, they would play water guns with him, and we'd hang out and at the square, and like, so it was, and he was kind. Like, he was so kind. And
And the courts were a lot different back then
they
too.
were. So
Yeah.
I show up to court, with my punk rock boyfriend
Right.
and being a stripper.
Yeah.
And, my son's father got involved with this born again Christian woman, blonde hair, blue eyed, put on her cute little dress. And, you know, her family was like a closeted, addicts themselves, but nobody knew back then at the time. And she ended up they ended up getting married, and she ended up having 3 daughters. So Logan had 3 half sisters, and he was closest with his middle sister, and that was his best friend. That was their soulmates,
Oh.
soulmates. And everybody vied for Logan's attention. So it was like, you know, when I ended up a year and a half later, left my boyfriend I met this girl at the strip club that I worked at. I went to a new club, and she was the niece of the owner, and she was a lesbian, and I just fell madly in love with her. Like, and she later, her and I were together for 9 years. So she helped me raise Logan, and she was Logan's mom. And those two were soulmates too. I feel like, you know, and that definitely did not go over well in court when it was like, oh, now I'm a stripper lesbian and I'm a mess. But we ended up buying a house, and I enrolled in college. I was going to school for fashion design and majoring in costume design because I wanted to work in theater. And that was the most normal Logan's life ever was during that 9 years, aside from, well, normal for me with him.
Mm-hmm.
But the stepmother, being a born again Christian, filled his head with, that far right, propaganda that, mommy and Becky are going to hell because they're gay. And so he went through some really traumatic mental abuse from her.
Sure.
And we all did, and I did. It was, and her mother was, just as abusive. And, like, I feel so bad for my kid, and everybody, it was just like, everybody loved him so much in their own ways. And, and my dad, my stepdad, who was like everyone, like he was the love of my life, and he passed away of esophageal cancer 6 years after my biological father passed away of esophageal cancer.
Oh, wow.
And but Papa, Becky, and Lily, and I like to think he would myself were his soulmates. He loved, and so when Papa passed away, Logan never really bounced back from his death, and kind of that village that Logan once had kind of fell apart.
How old was he then?
Gosh, maybe like 17.
Okay.
17.
And he's being
18.
torn between the stepmom and what she's saying.
Well,
but he loves
yeah.
all of you so much.
That was when he was little, yeah.
Okay.
Because they ended up divorcing when he was, I want to say 10 or something.
Oh, okay. So then she was out
maybe
of the picture
11 or 12
after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they tried, and I did my best. I'm a pretty forgiving, non-judgmental person, and I knew Logan did care about her and the sisters, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're going through their own messy, divorce, and I just felt like a peacemaker. I always just wanted everybody to just get along.
So your dad died and he just fell apart after
The
that?
whole family fell apart. My dad was like the glue that held everybody together. So we did Christmases and Thanksgiving, and he tried to keep us together, and Logan was the apple of his eye. He was the golden child. He was the golden grandchild. Like everybody loved Logan. Like Logan was above all the grandchildren. Sorry to my brother and sister and my stepsister and stepbrother, but Logan,
he was a favorite. Yeah.
He was the favorite. And I think everybody knew that. And Logan took his death the hardest.
How were his voices and things like that by this time that he's a teenager?
I periodically would ask him, like, I remember when he was a teenager, maybe around like 14 or 15, I said, "Hey, do you remember that time where you were hearing voices and seeing things?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to talk about it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He's like, that was just back then. And then I asked him again when he was an adult, and he said he learned to suppress it and keep it to himself because it caused so much tension, and everybody was fighting and blaming each other. So while we all selfishly, were fighting with each other, and he was
really
just suffering on the side. Yeah. But I never, and schizophrenia runs on his father's side of the family.
Okay.
And, yeah, so in his adult years, and then the last few years, he started opening up to me that he was having night terrors and sleep paralysis.
So how old is he now when he's opening up to you as an adult?
He's about 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So
and that's usually around the time it really starts happening.
Yeah.
With men.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm learning all of this. Like it's like I've spent the past 10 months trying to put the pieces of my son's life together. And, it's, you reflect on like what I could have, should have, would have done different. And so many of us have so much guilt, Becky, and obviously his father, like he was estranged from his father for quite some time, and he made peace with his father before he passed. He called me up and he said, "Mom, his dad was a musician, and he said, I really want to take my dad to go see Primus. It would mean a lot to me. in Coheed and Cambria in Buffalo. And, you know, he didn't have a car at the time. His father lives 45 minutes from us. And he, and he said, can I borrow your car? And can I borrow some money to get my dad these tickets? I'm like, oh yeah, of course. You know, and I always asked about his father, and he was always, the past couple years, he was always proud of his dad. He's like, I'm so proud of my dad. He finally moved out of that apartment, and, you know, he's got this girlfriend and he's going to get married. And, you know, like he was in, it was comforting because it's like, okay, his father and I did the best that we could.
Yeah.
And I always cared about his father because he was family to me. And it was like the person that he got involved with that destroyed all of us. And so he just, yeah, so he's, and I that's when I asked him, I'm like, are these the same things that are happening to you when you were a little boy? And he's like, yeah, but it's worse. It's like getting worse. And I'm like, are you? And Logan was the kind of kid, he was hyper independent. He had a 2-bedroom apartment down the road from me at 19, and he stayed in that apartment from 19 till he passed when he was 26. And he never asked for anything. He was so prideful, and he loved that, like, I don't know if loved is the right word, but he was so proud of his independence. He paid his rent, he paid his bills. He did struggle with addiction himself, but mostly with pills and alcohol. But
which could have been trying to mask those voices, and the
right, but
things
there
that were
were so
going
many
on.
things he wanted to do with his life. And he loved to travel. You know, he went to Scotland and England and Amsterdam and Costa Rica, and he loved San Diego and Brooklyn. Like, he would just hop a flight and just go to a random show in a different state and fly back the next morning and just couch surf on someone's couch
Right.
that he met at the concert. Like,
He was living it up.
he just lived such a beautiful life. And I think that he was also trying to escape his life, because every time he came back from one of his travels, he was getting, I noticed his mental health was getting worse. And he was the kind of kid you couldn't use you should statements. Oh, you should do this. You should get therapy. Or, you know, like, there was not, you couldn't tell him what to do. He was the master of his life. So I listened. And anytime I was like, oh, well, you know, you should, if I found this really great psychiatrist, you should do this, he'd push me away. And he's like, I got it under control. And
And his hyper independence.
yeah. And the thing is like, he was a hard worker. He was a workaholic. He got Employee of the Month. When he worked at Amazon, he got 2 raises in the short time he was there. And, you know, in November, you know, so he was just a workaholic, and he traveled, and he lived with his beloved cat, Black Cat, who's my grand kitty and who I inherited now. And he's a comfort, but that was Logan's guy. Like, that was Logan's baby. Like, it was just him and his cat.
Oh.
And his sister lived with him for a period of time, and then she moved out. But
The middle sister?
yeah. Yeah, because I think he was mending relations with his older and his younger sister. Like, he was working on, like, it's almost, I think he had this planned for quite some time. I found a journal when I cleaned out his 2-bedroom apartment, and it was written. Everything was written. Pictures, drawings, different dates, how he was going to do it.
Oh,
and
wow.
just the years kind of went on, and Mac Miller was one of his favorite artists. And we shared, you know, when Mac Miller passed away of a drug overdose at 26, um, we shared, and he cried about it. Logan was super, super sensitive, and he spoke through music. He dedicated a song to me by Mac Miller, um, that he wrote for his mother. And it was the greatest gift that I ever received from anyone, because no one can take that away from me. And I
Mm-mm.
listen to it all the time. And sometimes I'll have coffee and sit in his apartment parking lot and just pretend like I'm waiting for him. And he always
Yeah.
like ran his hands through his hair, and I could always tell what kind of mood he was in. Was he in a talkative mood, or was he kind of like, let's just have a silent car ride and go do what we need to do, you know?
So y'all were really in tune with each other.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I was definitely more in tune with him. I think he was just really struggling to just get by in life. I could tell things weren't okay, and he was getting online therapy, and she prescribed him like Seroquel.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Mm-hmm.
And he hated it. He said he didn't like the way it made him feel.
Would he say that it made him numb?
It
Like
made
we didn't
him
really
numb,
feel.
emotionless. He said,
Yeah.
what's the point of living if that's how I'm going to
Right.
live? And,
Yeah.
you know, and then he would go off of it, but he wouldn't drink or do anything when he, you know, he really,
Mm-hmm.
really, really put his best foot forward to get help for himself.
Yeah.
And, but he would go on and off again, and
Which then that makes roller coaster
yeah,
emotions.
and that's how
You're
he
kind
was
of all
kind of
over.
behaving, you know,
Yeah.
like, and I didn't know what to do, like, you know, and I talked to my therapist about it, and, you know, and it's like, I'm like, and I just, I don't, I just feel so sad for him because, you know, and they say in the grief process that you get angry, and I'm like, and I couldn't imagine being angry. I couldn't imagine being angry at my kid for doing this. Like, I'm so grateful for the 26 years he gave me. I'm so grateful for the 26 years he pushed through his suffering for everyone else. And I don't think all suicides can be prevented. I don't think all mental illnesses can be cured. It's like saying cancer can be cured.
Right.
Some cancers, yeah, if you get early testicular cancer, sure, you could probably be cured. But if you're in stage 4 pancreatic cancer, you know, and I think his mental health was in his stage 4.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with suicide awareness and suicide prevention because it gives this false, it's like a false statement of like, oh, this person can be fixed. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think everybody can be fixed.
Right.
And I think we need to stop sugarcoating mental illness and suicide as if it's something that can be cured.
Right. I agree.
And I feel so bad for all those people out there suffering. Like, you know, and I've always been suicidal my whole life and a cutter. And I found out through the officer that was on scene that Logan was a cutter. And I didn't know that about him. And
Well, it sounds like he kept a lot of things hidden from
he was so
everyone.
private, and he was kind of like a chameleon in a way. Like, he everybody got a different version of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was different when he was with me. He was different when he was with his sister. He was a recluse, you know.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have friends. People didn't come over to his apartment. Like, maybe his colleagues, you know, he hung out with maybe a little bit. But his sister was his everything, and he hung out with her friends, you know, and he did
Mm-hmm.
have friends. You know, people loved him, but I don't know that part of his life.
Right.
He would talk about some friends, ones in California, and
When you said that you were reading, in his journals and stuff, and he had a plan and everything in the past, and then
Yeah, he just wrote these cryptic drawings. He didn't write out in sentences or paragraphs, but they were like little tombstones with his birthday and different death dates, or like, like, help someone please help me, sketched out, like, um going to bed with my demons, and just like these little pictures and drawings of, I think, what he saw.
yeah, that's why I'm wondering if he was just very internally stimulated and hearing voices, and but he didn't probably didn't even want to worry
He
all
did
of
it,
you.
and he didn't, and I think that's why he traveled so much. And so his he traveled to get away from this, and he told
Yeah.
me that, I when I'm out of here, I'm just, you know, away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the chaos that goes on in my head,
Mm.
and I just never knew what to say. I'm like, well, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And he's like, there's nothing anybody can do. My brain's fucked. I'm just fucked, he would always say. And I'm like, well, maybe you should write them down. Like, maybe you should write books or screenplays or something. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how Stephen King came up with his movies and his books and stuff,
Yeah.
and I look back now and I'm like, was I making light of the situation? Like, I think when this happens, you're just always questioning, like, what could I have done? What should I have done?
Yeah, but you also had to be very careful because, like you said, he didn't like to be told what to do. So you
Right.
had to be careful how you present that stuff to him because it needs to be his idea,
Right.
regardless.
Right.
Gosh, that's just so tough.
Yeah, there's just so many layers, and I just, you know, and there's these little things that, I had to clean out his 2-bedroom apartment, and my mother helped me a little bit, and my best friend helped a little bit, but it was mostly me, and I had to go through his things and pack, just, throw things in bins. And so I've slowly been going through those bins, because now, everybody wants something of his.
Right.
And it's like so frustrating, because nobody knows when you have such a, like, traumatic loss, and everybody's just got their hand out for something. And
Mm-hmm.
I totally, I want everybody to have a piece of him.
Right.
And my sister pulled, I will never speak to her again. She pulled some really terrible things on me to get the key to his apartment, and
Oh,
she's
God.
just a monster in herself. She's just dead to me. But, and Logan loved her. Logan loved her, and she did help, you know, at a point in his life when I was kind of a mess myself. He went down and he lived with her for like a year and a half or 2 years. And I know that they had that bond. And so she was the first one that got a package of his from me, and I just wrote a letter saying there was no denying that Logan loved you.
Right.
I fucking hate you,
Yeah.
but my son loved you.
Right.
And
That wasn't enough for her, the
oh, I
package.
won't speak to her.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I don't know. She's dead to me.
Yeah.
She's just a, her and my mother are like two peas in a pod. I just can't, but I'm close with my older brother. He was, my husband and my older brother. He really pulled through in everything that he has going in his life. Him and my husband and my business partner. Like, I did have a community of people, and my uncle. And it's just, that's its own trauma too, because after the funeral, it's people just disappear.
I know. It's like everybody goes back to their
Normal life,
life, and now you have a
they,
whole new normal that you have
yeah,
to somehow figure out how to deal with.
yeah, and
And it's such a great loss.
it's, I feel like, you know, when I found him,
Oh, you found him.
yeah, he was dating this girl in Brazil, and they had never physically met, but they were very, very, very close. And she reached out to me, and he never opened up to people, but for some strange reason, he opened up to his girlfriend and told her a lot of things. So, and she screenshot me a lot of their conversations. So it was a huge piece to put this puzzle together. And she messaged me on Facebook, and she wasn't my friend. So the message got stuck in some
Yeah.
place you don't
Those
even know
hidden ones,
exists.
right.
And she said that she was worried about Logan, that she thinks something bad happened. And she ends up, I don't respond to her because I didn't see the message. So she messages my husband, and him being from Brazil, and so they were friends.
Oh.
And he said, you know, Carolina's trying to get a hold of you. She's worried about Logan. And so when I read her message, she told me, and I was like, you know, he's having a hard time. He probably just needs some space, because I've gone through this with all of Logan's girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of phone calls I get from crying young girls that my son's threatening to kill himself. So I kind of was like, just give him some space. I texted him. I'm like, hey, Logan, I'm around if you need to talk. Give me a shoot me a message. And I didn't hear anything, which wasn't really abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was so close to New Year's, and we love to go see music together, and I have a ton of friends and clients and bands, and I was like, hey, what are you doing for New Year's? You want, two of my clients' bands are playing at two separate bars if you want to go. And I didn't hear back, and I thought that was strange. So I was like, Then I started to get this really weird feeling. I'm like, I don't know, something's not right. A feeling I've never had before. And so that night we went to bed, and my husband at 2 a.m. flies out of bed, and he's screaming that there's an old man laying in bed next to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, we don't drink, we don't do drugs, we don't have any weird things that, like, not weird things, but, you know, I'm like, this is never...
It's not like you're just seeing something.
Yeah, and I turn the lights on, and he's still staring at what he believes there's an old man laying in bed next to me. And I got out of bed. I was like, there's nobody there. He's like, no, I know what I saw. I'm like, are you sleeping? Are you sleepwalking? Are you
Right.
hallucinating? I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And he's like, I saw a man with a beard and, you know, whitish hair laying in bed with you. And I'm like, just go. And he started to freak me out, because he's not like
backing
that.
down on
And
it
he's
either.
like, I know what I saw. And then I'm like, I didn't go back to sleep. And I'm like laying in bed, and I have to get up for work, and I'm like kind of freaked out, and I'm like, I'm worried about my kid. So I texted my younger son's father, and I said, hey, can you, because I'm like, who else would be up at 2:30 in the morning? You know, my younger son's delinquent father would be. So I'm like, hey, can you do me a favor and go check on Logan, see if his car's there and his lights are on, because Logan stayed up all night, usually playing video games or whatever. And he's like, his apartment was dark and his car was there. I was like, okay, if his car's there, he's got to get up early for work, and I'm sure. And I never wanted, and he lived in a secure apartment building, so nobody could get in there, even though I had a set of keys.
Mm-hmm.
But Logan wasn't the kind of kid that you wanted to piss off with what he felt like was me being overly dramatic, which I
Right.
tend to be overly dramatic according to my 2 children and husband and probably everybody
Yeah,
else.
they all say that.
And so I couldn't shake the feeling, and so I dozed off, and my son's my younger son's father messaged me. He said, "Oh, by the way, Logan needs a new windshield wiper on his driver's side." And I'm like, something's wrong. Something is wrong. It's not like my son to drive around with no windshield wiper. Like, something's wrong. I was running late for work. I didn't have time to cancel my client. I'm a barber. And so I took my first client. I told my business partner, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to go get blood work. I'll be right back. I canceled a couple of my clients. And I told her earlier, I was like, I'm really worried about Logan. And so I picked up my ex, and I just knew something was wrong. And I didn't pick up my husband because my husband's super sensitive, and he is a loving, kind, amazing human being. And he's, we've only been married for, it'll be 5 years this year, but he's been through enough where my other son's father, he's just a ball of chaos himself, so I didn't really
Right.
care what. And he was more like equipped to handle if something was bad.
Yeah.
And so I go, are you sleeping? And he goes, no. I'm like, can I come pick you up? I seriously think something's wrong with Logan. And so I scooped him up, and we went in to his apartment, and he lived on a 3rd floor, and he stood in the stairs in the hallway, and I opened his apartment. I knew something was wrong because his apartment was dark, and he should have been to work. And his black cat comes over to me screaming. And I just kind of like look to the left in the kitchen, and black cat just kind of runs to the right, like grandma, look, and I look over to my right, and all I see is my son's feet. He had, he was sitting at his computer desk, and I walked over, and he was gone. And my brain broke, my heart broke, and a part of me died. I'll never be the same, and I feel like people are so cruel, you know. They're so cruel because the fucking platitudes. Oh, he's in a better place. He's not
Oh,
suffering.
it's like the worst thing people can say.
And since then, I just feel like I've been living in like an alternate universe, where I have to function and work, in a universe where I'm searching for my son. He's been with me since I was 17, I'm 45, and he was so much who I was.
Right.
And it still doesn't feel real. He was such a good kid. He was my lamb. And there's so many layers. It's not like he just died of a natural cause, or like, there's so many layers to the trauma for both of us. And
did he OD on something, or did he shoot himself?
Asphyxiation.
Oh.
All I saw is he had a bag over his head. And I had nightmares, like Mom, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Get it off. And I couldn't touch him. I couldn't undo the knot. I couldn't take the bag off. And he just, for long. And everybody's like, oh, do you dream of Logan? Has he come to you? And I'm like, no, I didn't tell anybody about the nightmares because
Definitely not the way you would
nobody
want him
knows,
to, right?
nobody knows how I found him. Nobody knows. I know my business partner put out an email um, saying that I lost my son, but and I was off of work for 3 months, and my best friend put a GoFundMe together, which I'm so grateful for, and my clients are so amazing. Like, I'm so grateful, and so I was able, it's like, where people have said to me, oh, it was so good you had 3 months off of work. I'm like, I didn't have a choice. I had
Yeah.
to clean out his apartment. I had to take the death
Probably couldn't
certificate.
function.
Well, it's not even that. I had to function.
Yeah.
Nobody was going to clean out his apartment. And then his landlord came over to show his apartment while I was like cleaning. And I'm like,
What?
yeah, like my son's imprint was still on the area rug. And I'm like, and the things that you have to do, like I had to close out his bank accounts. I had to, he wasn't married. And like I did it all. It was just me.
Yeah.
So, and selfishly, I refused to close his student loan account because they call for him and I like to hear his name, we're looking for Logan Farnsworth. I'm like, oh, he's not available right now. Try calling back tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and I'm like, oh, I get to hear my son's name again because people stop saying his name.
Yeah.
But you know who doesn't? The Department of Education. They don't stop saying his name. They don't stop sending him mail.
Has his dad been around at all to offer anything that he maybe talked
I'm
to them
sure
about?
his father's going through his own guilt. Becky's got her own guilt. He tried reaching out to her and she changed her phone number. Like, it's just like everybody has so much. And his best friend and sister, she doesn't want anything to do with anybody. She packed up and moved out of state, and I'm still pretty close with his girlfriend in Brazil, and her and Becky we're on a little group chat, and we say Logan's name, we talk about him, and I'm in a support group for people who've lost children, and I've gotten really close with this one woman who's I'm not quite sure how old she is, but she's lost 3 children. She's in her late 70s or early 80s, and she's the mom that I always wanted and needed. And so I call us the odd couple because she's kind of like Rose Nyland and I'm like,
Yeah.
and so her and I are very, very close, and the Compassionate Friends support group, and I go to one called Faith in Grief, and Faith in Grief is nice because it's all grief, and it's helped me to be more compassionate when people try to, when people are like, oh, my dad passed away. I used to be like, well, at least it wasn't your kid.
Right.
And that's not fair because grief sucks.
It does.
And I've learned that the hardest grief in the world is our own. And without these 2 support groups, I don't think I would be alive.
Yeah.
And I have a 16-year-old son, who's also struggling, and he's very, very upset with his brother. And I don't know how to help him. I don't think anybody knows what to do with teenage boys with a complicated.
Well, there's just really no solid answers that make sense
No,
for something like that.
no. And there's no getting through. There's no getting through to them. And, you know,
Like, even for you, there's nothing that anyone could say truly to make that pain any easier.
no, acknowledgement,
Yeah.
that's all. You know, like, I'm learning so much about grief and what to say and what to do, and the grieving, they don't need your platitudes. They don't need you to try and fix their grief. They don't need you to take away their grief. And I it's just acknowledgement. Like, hey, I acknowledge, it's,
And just show up. Show
yeah.
up for them.
And it's tough, in my industry, I've got clients, like 10 to 14 clients a day. It's, oh, you doing anything fun this summer? And it's like, no.
I'm just trying to make it day by day right now.
I'm just,
yeah.
Oh, come on, Logan wouldn't want. I'm like, you don't even know Logan. What do you mean? You don't get to say those things.
Right.
Like, just acknowledgement, or
Yeah.
just talk about yourself. Like,
I think when people are uncomfortable, they should
Which
probably
is-
just not say anything.
which is everybody.
Yes.
And I'm guilty of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the holidays, I don't know how I'm going to get through the holidays and the 1-year anniversary coming up. And
Was it on New Year's?
So yeah, it was, if I know Logan, it was probably when the ball dropped. It was probably, and I was a day and a half late getting to him.
Mm.
Is what the medical examiner said.
There's no way you could have known, though, with...
I never in a million years, like...
they always say, what were the signs? What were this? So many times there are none. And it's a lot of times impulsive, even if they've talked about it 100 different times.
Yeah, and like he would always say like, oh, if I ever killed myself, I would do it this way. He's like, I just don't want to be in pain. I just want it to be quick and peaceful. And that's what he did. He wasn't in pain, and it was quick and peaceful. And I look back at all the things he said to me and that I've said to him, and like, the signs were there, but I didn't know how to help him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the night terrors, and the sleep paralysis, and I have a text from him that said, Mom, I don't know what I would ever do without you. And between that and the Mac Miller song, and like all the Christmas cards and birthday cards I gave to him that I just assumed he would have thrown away, he kept every little thing I gave him.
Well, he loved you. Here's Mama.
Sometimes I just I don't think I ever felt like I deserved to be loved by him, just because I too was a train wreck, when I was 17, 18, and 19, and I let people, have control.
But that didn't last that long. You know what I mean? Like, through his teenage and adult years, you guys were close. You would do things together. You did all that.
Yeah, and like, I mean, in the years that, we were with Becky, and
Mm-hmm.
I just...
But that's not your fault. There's a lot of people involved in all of that.
A lot of people.
But it's so hard not to blame yourself. I think it just...
I think so many people, his girlfriend blames herself, Becky blames herself. Like, I'm sure his father blames him. I mean, there's so much blame.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the only person who isn't blaming themselves is his crazy stepmother and her mother. But he was a good kid, and I'm just so sad that his life was cut short.
I just don't, like, as long as I did psych and everything, in these situations, people do want to blame themselves, but I don't think, based on what you're saying with how he was, as far as, he didn't want to be told what to do. And as nice as you might have been in trying to offer him help, or say, maybe you should do this, he might have taken offense to that.
Yeah, and he did.
Like,
and he just there was no telling him what to do with his life. It was like, be there to support him and
Right.
listen. He hated unsolicited advice, period. And I'm the queen of giving out unsolicited advice.
I think as moms, we just do that.
I even do it
moms,
with,
wives,
I even do
whatever.
it with my clients. I just, but with him, it was, he would just push me out of his life.
Kind of had a tiptoe because
it was,
there was a consequence if you did that.
Yeah.
You might be pushed away totally.
Yeah.
How would you know? You wouldn't.
I didn't know. And I do believe that I had a visitation from him months after, and it was so vivid. And we just hugged each other in my dream. And he had a pale pink shirt on and blue jeans, and nothing was said. Nothing was said, but everything was said through energy. When we held each other, it was like forgiveness and unconditional love, and apologies, and and I didn't want to leave that dream. That was like the last time I hugged him.
It's so real. I'm proud of you for even functioning. I mean that.
Thank you.
I mean that. I lost my first husband in like a tragic accident that I witnessed and everything. And, everybody used to say, all the things that they say and that they shouldn't say, that. But I always just remember saying, because I have I had two baby girls. And I would just always say, like, thank God it's not one of my kids. Because something that I don't ever want to imagine. And I don't know how people function.
I don't, we sit in a support group and we don't know how we function. I had a client recently tell me oh, you seem to be doing much better, you're back to work. And I'm like, I don't have a choice.
Have to. Yeah.
My bills aren't going to pay themselves. Like I have a teenage kid that still needs me. I've got my husband that needs me.
Yeah.
Like, there's just so much. So many people that count on me, and I just want to disappear.
But see, that's another example of where people should just not, if they're going to say something like that, don't say anything.
Just don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I designed a t-shirt and it says, grief in progress, please silence your platitudes. So I was going to wear that for Christmas.
That is
for
awesome.
The holidays,
That is awesome.
But I just think that I'm just so fucking broken.
Yeah.
I don't know how I get through the day. I don't know how to not sabotage my marriage. I don't know how to not sabotage my career with my clients, because, there's days I'm just so goddamn angry and I just want to burn the world down. And I just have to keep going and wear this mask and pretend that everything's fine, and people don't understand when you smile and when you laugh that it's just so fucking fake.
Yeah, it's so
and
facade.
That you're dying inside. Like, I went down to downtown Nashville to get some souvenirs for my some of the people in my grief support group, and my 6-year-old niece, who's just been a little saving grace for me right now. And I just, being around happy, drunk people, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And I passed this table of these two guys um, trying to get donations for teens and addiction, and they're raising money and awareness of teen mental health and stuff like that. And of course, it was the one place I wanted to be in all of Nashville, at this little tiny table talking to these two men desperately trying to tell all the happy people, like, hey, you got a couple bucks to spare to help our, you know
Yeah.
um and it's like, people out there doing that kind of work in downtown Nashville, and he gave me a shirt. I told him my story, and he gave me a shirt, and it just said, I am enough. And I just wish that Logan felt that he was enough, cuz along with his other things, he had very, very, very poor self-esteem and didn't want to burden people.
And I can see from your picture too. I mean, he was gorgeous.
He was a very beautiful boy. He was very beautiful. He had a great head of hair. I was his barber. I know.
Right, right.
Um, but
I'm usually not at a loss for words. I usually can talk and talk and talk, but I can't even imagine.
no. No, sometimes I think, God, I wish my kid had cancer so I could be there to take care of him. And,
So it
you
made
know,
some kind of sense,
so it made,
right?
and then it's like in one of my support groups, the mother whose child did die of cancer, she was like, I wish my child died of quicker causes, because
Yeah.
going through years of suffering and there's nothing you could do. So it's just, and
Right,
you can't say that to the general public. Like,
right.
oh, I wish my kid had cancer. Oh, I wish my kid committed suicide.
Yeah,
Like, but in these groups, we all understand each other. Like, so we're not being judged. And
yeah. But right there, what you just said, the example you just said, even with my first husband that passed away, it was suddenly, quick accident. Um, I used to wish that all the time. Like, I wish it would have been something like cancer, so I would have been
yeah,
able to take care of him. And I would have been
yeah,
able to say the things I wanted to say, and we would have had some kind of closure.
yeah.
So, but it does, it goes either
It's a
way.
it's a
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
But I would have never wanted to see him suffer.
no, because I've been through that with both my dad and my stepdad.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're relieved when it finally does
Yeah.
happen, and it's like, oh,
Right.
and
But shit, I was selfish. I just wanted 5 more minutes.
yeah, I
5 minutes
don't think
to
that's
say what you want to say.
yeah, that's not selfish. And I'm sorry for
And
your
that's my
loss.
first husband, and it's been like 24 years, and it still affects me.
Well, and that's the thing. There's no timeline in
Right.
grief, especially with,
Yeah.
spouses and children. And,
Mm-hmm.
my partner lost her beloved dog, and she still breaks down. And it's like, we
Yeah.
can't judge people's grief,
Right.
and there's no timeline to grief. And
Right.
we just need to be more compassionate and loving and
Mm-hmm.
supportive, not with words, but with acknowledgement.
Right. And you hear people criticize, oh, she's too upset. She needs to get over it. Oh, she got over it way too quick. She's too happy because she might have been smiling one time. Like, God forbid,
The
like the judgment.
the grief guilt is real. Like, the grief guilt is real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I went and saw a client slash friend of the shop. She's like, hey, Chelsea Handler's coming to the Fringe Festival, and where I'm from. She's like, do you want to go? I'm like, oh, I love Chelsea Handler. And I was just, with a client cutting his hair, just barbershop banter. I'm like, yeah, I'll go. And she's like, all right, I'm ordering tickets now. And then when the time came, like, I'm not ready to go to concerts. I'm not ready to have fun. I'm not ready to laugh. I'm like, and so when the time came, I was just like, man, I do not want to do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel guilty. I feel uncomfortable. I feel like my son should be here. Like, I am not out to have a good time. And then you run into people who know you and they're like, oh, her son passed away and she's going to a comedy show.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, when those lights went off, I cried through the whole show. I couldn't. I just couldn't. I felt so uncomfortable. And luckily the people, including my husband that I was there with, they all just held me in the sense of they held that space for me. And I
Yeah.
just said, just everybody just enjoy your time. Like,
Yeah.
and that's what you need. It's like to just unapologetically be your messy,
Right.
grieving self, and
Right.
people, and to surround yourself with people who are comfortable with that.
Right.
And yeah, there were some things that Chelsea's opening act said, you know, where I'm like laughing on the inside, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't stop crying, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, and you're probably going through all those emotions. I feel bad if I laugh. He can't do that anymore. He doesn't
yeah,
see this. It's just a vicious cycle.
yeah. And I can't imagine losing a spouse and then finding someone new. And did you, it's the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God, I'm moving on. I'm like getting remarried. Does
Yeah.
this mean that my last marriage doesn't count? Like,
Right.
and I wouldn't
Right.
think about these things if it wasn't for my faith and grief group,
Mm-hmm.
where there are people
Right.
who've lost a spouse, and hearing their story.
Mm-hmm.
And
I still feel that guilt of
oh,
things like when
I'm sure.
our daughters are doing stuff, or our 3 grandbabies that he would have been like the greatest grandpa to.
Yeah.
But, I am remarried now, but it took me 18 years.
Yeah.
18 years. And he knew him too.
Yeah.
He was in my first wedding. We have a funny, we'll talk about that afterwards. But that I don't think that it ever really leaves.
No. And it shouldn't,
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm not the same person. I'll never be the
No.
same person.
No.
Like, I've tried, accelerated resolution therapy, like it's a shorter version of EMDR. I'm doing all the support groups. I'm doing everything to find myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read every single grief book out there.
Yeah.
And there is one book that has been my Bible through all of this, and it's Devine's It's Okay That You're Not Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every funeral home and every school should make this book mandatory, because we're all going, if you're capable of love, you're going to grieve at some point in your
Right.
life. And there just simply is no timeline. There is no,
Mm-mm.
it's 18 years and you still are feeling this way, because
Yeah.
we have to learn to rebuild a new life around our
Right.
loss. And that's what people don't understand, especially when it's like a child or a
was gonna say,
spouse.
a
And it
child
wasn't,
though,
like,
you can get remarried. You can do those things. Not that you're forgetting about that first marriage or that the person you were with before, but with a child, there is no one else that ever goes in that
no,
space. Ever.
no,
Ever. Even if you have more children,
no.
there's still always that space.
It's just like a black spot in my
Yeah.
heart. That's just like, I can't explain what happened to my body when I walked in and saw my son lying there. I broke. I felt it. I heard it. I saw a flash of light and I broke. And there's no coming back from that. And I wish that people were just more patient and more compassionate, and that my emotions, I don't want people to take things personal, and I want people to continue to say Logan's name, and I want people to share stories with him, good or bad,
Mhm.
He kind of got himself into a little love triangle,
Did he?
before he passed, and I had, and people were like, why are they calling his grieving mother to air his personal? And I'm thinking, listen, if that's all I got for people to talk about him,
Yeah.
I'm completely on board. I'm sorry for these two girls,
Right.
but
But maybe they both loved him too, and
they
there were
did love
pieces of
him,
him that they really loved, and you probably do want to
and
hear
he
that.
loved them too,
Yeah.
but in completely different ways.
Hmm.
And I think as human beings, we can all relate to the different kinds
Yeah.
of love. Um, and he, you know, and I get, I remember in the early months, I would lay in bed and I would just check my Facebook nonstop and my text message. I'm like, maybe there's a girl out there who got pregnant and didn't tell him, and maybe I have a grandchild, and
Grandbaby.
I would
Yeah.
literally just like sit there and be like, oh my God, what if, and
Right.
and I just know Logan. He never he just wanted to spend his life traveling. I
Yeah.
mean, he did mention that he might have wanted to have kids with this girl in Brazil, and um but I have a grand kitty, and he's
Yeah.
yeah, and
And that was his baby.
that was his baby. That was his black cat, was his pride and joy. That was
Was that his name?
Black Cat.
Black cat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Black Cat and I have both put on a lot of weight in the past 10 months, and sometimes I'm like, I feel like Logan would be like, stop giving him so many treats, Like, it's okay, mom,
You're
enough,
like, but I
enough.
have to. I have to
Yeah,
baby
he
him.
wakes me up every morning at 4:45 a.m. Not a minute sooner, not a minute later.
Really?
4:45 every morning he wakes me up for snacks. And we do snacky wacky time at the side of my bed, and I just toss him
Oh.
on the floor, and sometimes I'm like, "Well, Logan, Black Cat's going to be chonky.
Sorry.
He's going to
Yeah.
be a chonky buddy when he sees you up at the Rainbow Bridge,
Oh. How old is he?
Black Cat,
Yeah.
I think he's like about 7.
So he could have a long way to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Aw.
He sits in a little basket. I have Logan's ashes on up my piano, and Black Cat will sit in a little basket on the dining room table, and he'll look at his dad's ashes on the piano, and I have a one of those photo frames that
Mm-hmm.
circles through the photos, and there's some
Yeah.
videos of Logan, and he'll just sit there and watch it, and
Watch.
he knows he was with his daddy when he passed,
Yeah.
and he knows, and I'm just so grateful that I was always, I took care of him when Logan traveled, so
Yeah.
he knew grandma was there for snacks,
Yeah.
and Logan would be like, "Oh man, you got to stop giving him wet cat treats." He's like, the litter box is a mess every
Right.
time he comes home from like vacation, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"You don't get a choice."
Oh.
So,
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was terrified to do this.
I could tell
Like,
a little bit. You're nervous, but God, this is a lot.
it
It's a
is a
lot
lot.
to even talk about.
It is. But
I mean, it's been your living hell for 10 months.
yeah, and it's going to continue to be my living hell till the day I die. And, you know, I'm an external processor. So for me, it's like talking about it helps me to try to make sense of things,
Mm-hmm.
and Logan was an internal processor, and I think it just kind of chewed him up. But yeah, I really appreciate you having this podcast and letting people share.
Well, you were so brave to share this. I can't imagine how hard it was to even share. Because it really hasn't been 10 months. That's nothing. Like
I
in the
know,
grief
and
process.
I often wonder what, like, looking back at this moment, like 10 like years from now, like, am I going to say something I shouldn't have? Are people going to be mad at me? And I'm like, I just don't care.
Right.
Right now, there's not a lot that I care what other people
Mm-hmm.
say. And right now. And
Because it really doesn't matter.
no, this is my son. This is our story together.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else has their stories
Right.
of Logan with them, but this is our truth. And this is, and he was my first true love of my life at 17.
You grew together.
Mm-hmm.
I think you did amazing. I really do.
Thank you. I know everything's kind of like hopping around everywhere.
It's really not.
But
You did good. You did really good.
thank you.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick note. After recording, Sarah had reached out and wanted to clarify something really powerful that she forgot to mention during our conversation. She explained that the apparition her husband saw in bed that night was actually her stepfather, someone he had never met, and he didn't even know what he looked like, not until Sarah later showed him a picture. She believed it was a sign that Logan's papa, her dad, had come to take him home.